simply because how easy it is to get nukes. You could get nukes as early as 2030 as Russia if you try enough. And so basically, it's because basically resources. Russia is the most richest in resources in the game, next to Kyrgyzstan up there, and Kyrgyzstan borders it. You might be thinking like Kyrgyzstan isn't more rushed than Russia, but it's because Russia has a larger population and is just in general more powerful. So if you want to rush Kyrgyzstan, if you want to rush the Soviet Union and basically nukes in general, here's the first step you need to do. First of all, you need to make electronics in your million cities. This will give you $250,000 in resources, plus the additional selling electronics. I started this year in later 2019, around June, so I have a little bit more money to use. And also, I'm on a private server, so this would be a lot easier. Just takes a lot of time. You're also gonna want to try and raid tanks, which is the fastest way to basically kill off Ukraine and Kyrgyzstan. It was a mistake, but it doesn't really matter, to be honest. 2 steel manufactories is kind of good. Anyways. Once you do all that, you have to wait for your electronics to, do that. In the meantime, you should get research, get to centralized research organizations, and try and get to quantum computing as fast as possible. Try to avoid going for other trees, such as the tank tree, as this is sort of useless if you want to really rush nukes. You also want to just find Kyrgyzstan and Ukraine first, as they're the 2 nations that you need to invade to have your uranium. Russia does not really make that much uranium, to be honest, compared to other nations. The most of them all is by far Kyrgyzstan. If you get the maxed out, like mining, mega structures, communism, or not really communism because it just increased mines, but you get what I mean. Like, policies, etc. There's 3 cities that make 0.4, which means around roughly 1, and then 2 cities that make 2 uranium each, all combining to become 5 uranium in total. With mining megastructures and the right policies, you can make both of these cities produce 13 uranium, which means that's enough for what you need. Now that the electronics are made, I can sell this to people. I'm just gonna sell them to Japan right now. Pretty easy money. And then you're just gonna wanna wait. You can invade Kyrgyzstan with just default infantry, which is pretty easy way to get past the tanks part. But you probably wanna make a separate force for the western part, as if you put your entire army, let's say, to the Central Asia, it's going to take a very long time for Central Asia to actually fall, as you could probably tell. And once Central Asia finally does fall, it's not really even, like, you have to send all your forces across to the Caucasus, then you have to send them to, you get the point, it's just going to take a hassle. And so, yeah. You could declare war on the nations that you want. If you want to, you could just take nations outside Soviet Union, but if you just want to go for nukes, just really rush Kyrgyzstan and Ukraine. You don't even need to form the Soviet Union at that point. This is a strategy that I use. If you're going to use home guard, send your 2 divisions close by Kyrgyzstan to Astana, as that's going to pull the Kyrgyzstani troops there, and the rest of your home divisions can just auto-capture. You can make a little bit of tanks, you don't really need a lot. That's not too much tanks, in my opinion. That's a pretty nice general, but Again, it's not really necessary to make a general and stuff like that. It's recommended by me, but to be honest, it's not really required at all. So, just when you're declaring war, make sure to always justify on nations so it goes a lot quicker. You probably want to justify Uzbekistan and then Belarus as their next prime targets. And after Uzbekistan and Belarus, it really depends on what you want to do. You could just go and finish off Central Asia to get that fun out of the way. Or you could just focus on, I don't know, the Caucasus. Just get that out of the way as well. It just depends on your play style, really. Are you willing to take that annoying stretch to take Central Asia first? That's really the question. It's just pretty much on your play style, yeah. Make sure to make more electronics factories, as this could help fuel your economy. And 3.2k tanks, that's more than enough for an entirety of Europe. 2.4k tanks, yeah, it's enough. 1.2k tanks, I feel like that's too little of that. It can beat the Ukrainian army, but it's going to take a load of casualties. It's only going to be 6 units. I feel like it's just too weak. 1,600 is like the minimum for my standards. But if you're pretty broke, yeah, you could go for 1,600 or lower. You could also have your diplomacy tab or diplomatic actions tab up to know when you're justifying. I'm gonna put these in 4 ways. And the second that you justify a nation, you should just invade them to get them, so you don't have to go back to your diplomacy tab again. Uzbekistan, justify war. Of course, you're probably gonna find some trolls when you're usually playing against Russia, possibly China taking Kyrgyzstan, for instance, or maybe there's an Afghanistan player or even a Poland player. And sometimes there can be a Ukraine player, although it's not really as common. Other options. Iran is by far the most annoying. China, you could probably just bribe them on resources, but most Iranians don't want them to form. They want Central Asia to form Persian, or at least the Khwarezmian dynasty. So you're gonna probably want to try and pressure Iran to stop doing anything like that by making maybe a strong army. Make sure to make an air force in a public server. I mean, because it's a private server, for me, don't really care. I just don't need it. So, once I capture Ukraine, I could just go straight towards just flying. So I'm gonna, in this time, I never have done this before, but I'm gonna go for Central Asia first. So Turkmenistan and Kyrgyzstan are what you want to justify on. Ukraine should fall pretty quickly as tanks on European planes just fits pretty well. Belarus, I predict, is going to be the first one out. No mountains. It's a pretty easy target. Let's see if you just find them first. Assign group. Make sure to always assign groups. And then it's auto for Belarus. Kyrgyzstan is about to fall. This is looking pretty good right now. It doesn't really matter what you do when you annex it. Just make sure to take their treasury and resources. Other than that, it's pretty much pointless. Of course, you want to annex cities, but I think you'll probably already do that. You want to make as much electronic factories in your million cities as possible to make as much income as possible. As you want that income to, make it a lot easier to get your nukes, because nukes are really expensive. That is for sure. All the things combined, it's extremely expensive compared to other things. Aircraft carrier is the next most expensive thing, and it's nowhere near the nuke. The nuke and it's like basically uranium emitters and other stuff like that. It costs billions of dollars, which is pretty hard to get, as you can probably tell. Ukraine. You could also use the select cities trick just to get them quick and easy into wars like mountains. Mountains are pretty annoying. Like, if you're in Ukraine mountains, you probably don't want to deal with the amount of cities in there, and also that really annoying city to the far west of the country, so it would be better off to leave that to the side. So I'm going to just find Moldova first, because it's pretty easy to invade. And then I'm going to just fly onto Kyrgyzstan, which is neatly done with Central Asia for most part. I also have to declare war on Turkmenistan, but that's not really necessary right now. Once Kyrgyzstan dies, you should make sure they get all their resources. If you don't get the resources, that's probably going to become a problem, as you need the resources basically. However, as tanks become less and less effective for me in Kyrgyzstan, you can start to use tanks. They're pretty annoying inside of Kyrgyzstan, but other than that, really no other issue. It's pretty much Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan which is annoying. Now I can declare war on Turkmenistan. As you can tell, I've already taken a lot of land, but it's nowhere near the amount of Soviet Union or maybe Russian Empire if you want to. I'm obviously going for Soviet Union first, well, less nations to invade, so it means it's quicker. I mean, if you want Russian Empire, you could go for it, because Finland has titanium, but other than that, there's no other point of it, other than the fact that you get a title. You could declare war on Moldova. I'm a little bit oil deficit, probably by like right around a dozen, but that shouldn't be a problem. And then you could just send your tanks over to Uzbekistan and just beat them up, basically. I think I made a bit too much tanks, but it doesn't really matter, because this is going to last you the entire game. So, the second that you form the Soviet Union, you should just disband all your forces, as there's no point. It's a waste of troops. It's not like anybody's going to join your private server anyways. So, then they're going to auto-capture them. And just sort of just fly in Caucasus region. You don't really want to just fly in the Caucasus nation too much if you want to start to destroy Europe a little bit. So, Georgia, then Lithuania. That leaves only 4 nations that just I left, once I do finish them. Alright, these tanks are now pretty much useless. No point in them existing anymore, as we're going to use infantry for the Caucasus as pretty rough terrain. I feel like it's necessary for that. So then once you're done with Kazakhstan, you should focus on Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan is probably the most annoying nation to invade when you're trying to form a Soviet Union, simply due to the lack of major cities, lack of resources really, and the annoying terrain. Other than the terrain, however, Kyrgyzstan isn't that annoying. It's just hard for your troops to take, and takes long time. Uzbekistan should be dying pretty soon. By 2021, you should have taken out the Uzbekistani forces. But for me, it's basically 2020, as I started off around 2020. So, I started off around early 20 or late 2019. So I'm roughly on time. Make sure to annex all the nations that you're taking over because you should probably you're gonna need that economy, so it's better to have it. Then once I take over Lithuania, I can start to just buy a little bit more other nations. Instead of going for the Caucasus, I'm gonna just buy in the Baltic states first, just to get them out of the way, and also so that I don't have to use any more money on my tanks. Okay, so 140,000 troops is enough for the Caucasus, but I just like making a bit more because it just adds on to speed in general. So Lithuania's collapsed. That isn't really any of my priorities. Lithuania isn't really your priority. Just forming Soviet Union adds a little bit of stability. Make sure your nation's not going to collapse because civilian goods are extra money. Probably not going to buy that extra money. Therefore, you're going to want to save all your money towards, nukes. Also, make sure to get all the resources that you can along the way. And go for maximum research spending around this time. It's probably going to make you deficit for a nice amount of time, but in the end run, it's going to make it a lot faster for research. Uzbekistan, you could just destroy them by this point. And you might want to get the research act. Basically increases the research, costs a lot of political power, but if you want to rush nukes, it's the best for it. And then you're just gonna beat up basically all of Uzbekistan. And once you beat up Uzbekistan, there's really nothing stopping you in Central Asia. Just basically annoyance of Turkmenistan. And Kyrgyzstan's mountains and Kyrgyzstan may be still alive for you. I mean, I took Bishkek, so they're pretty much out of the way. And then this Annex Lithuania. Again, you're probably not going to do it in the same order as I am doing it, but... And judging that you're probably on a public server, I mean, if you're testing out nukes, you're probably just going to be on a private server for the first time. Unless you want to try get a challenge. I tried getting nukes on once it was updated, but however, it's pretty hard to do on the first time. You don't really have an idea of what's happening. It's just going to be hard. And I would just recommend it doing that the easy way. Make sure to go for Kyrgyzstan now. Oh, forgot Kyrgyzstan is not. Make sure you're at war with the nations you're declaring war at. Or you want to invade. Don't be a dumb person. You don't want to be that type of guy. It's just annoying. I'm going to send these tanks over to Turkmenistan. After Turkmenistan dies, that's pretty much just Asia gone from it. I guess if you count Caucasus as Asia, does count a little bit. Then you want to just declare war on Latvia and Estonia, which would finish off Europe mostly, other than Caucasus. Declare war on Latvia. To be honest, you don't even need to use a strategy. You can just auto capture it. You're gonna take a little bit of losses, but it's a lot faster in general. So I recommend doing it. Then you want to annex Georgia, so you get them out of the way. Annex Uzbekistan. The war should be starting to slow down a little bit now. There's less and less nations to invade. Kyrgyzstan should be dead by now for you. Make sure to annex them. I almost did the wrong decision there. That would have been bad, as you could obviously tell. And just auto-capture Turkmenistan, and then auto-capture Tajikistan, and then you're pretty much done in Asia. You could just move on. No, wrong nation. Auto-capture Tajikistan, and just find the last two nations. And so Azerbaijan, justify, and then Armenia. Then you wanna just auto-capture Estonia. Latvia's gone, so I could just auto-capture them. Okay, and that's it for Europe. Asia's also gone completely. It's just a Caucasus at this point. 2 nations left, and then I'm done with the pretty much the most annoying part if you consider Soviet Union annoying. I don't consider the Soviet Union annoying simply because it's so easy as Russia. If you're trying to form like Central Asian Union and take over Russia like that, it's a lot harder. Obviously, as if it's a competent Russia. And although a competent Russia probably just watch Kyrgyzstan first thing, actually. But even if it was a decent Russia, be able to know how to make tanks. The only reason you'd be able to beat them is planes, which is why being as Kyrgyzstan is a lot harder to rush nukes. And then it's Annex Estonia. Turkmenistan is dead. You should only have like 2 or 3 wars at the most by 2021. Even if you are laggy, because I'm definitely lagging, I'm still making this pretty easy. Make sure to never, and I mean never, auto-capture the Caucasus. There's only one exception to this, and that's if they have no home guard. But if they do have a home guard, chances are you're going to take a lot of casualties. You're probably going to take at least 100,000 casualties simply because mountainous is so OP with defensive zone. I don't know if the newer updates have changed that or not, but it's better to be safe than sorry. You could just close the diplomacy tab at this point. That's it now for good. Make sure you're getting research. Am I getting research? Yep, I could get advanced supercomputers. Do I have policies of the... Yep, make sure you have the advanced research through. Oh, no, wrong decision. And make sure to take this city in Azerbaijan to get their troops tailed over. You might be low stability at this point, like I am, if you don't have civilian goods. Civilian goods aren't necessarily at all. Just kind of an extra thing that you kind of want to get. If you're in a normal Rise of Nations game, then yeah, definitely. You need to get civilian goods. Civilian goods is like the most important thing of a normal game. Then once you kill the Azerbaijan forces, you're pretty much home free. You can just auto-capture. Armenia's collapsed. This is the final stretch, basically. Once you're here, you can just pretty much just sit AFK as long if you're in a private server. And if you're a public server, you can just check in every once in a while and see if your nation is good or not. And then you can just become AFK. Basically, just check in as in a public server. In a private server, obviously, the only thing that's going to annoy you is probably just the occasional strikers make demands, which won't kill your nation, but they're probably going to weaken it a little bit. Lower maybe your electronics, which will destroy your income, basically. I mean, now with these tanks you. So it's been several years as playing Soviet Union, just being AFK, basically. I took over Poland, got my economy up. I also got my stability up, and I just really stay AFK. I got the Research Bureau, stuff like that, and then Public Service Act, which you can get when you get uranium enrichers. That can increase your research output. And you could go into research. I recommend going to the economic tree and getting advanced geological surveying. You should check how much enriched uranium you have. You can make an enriched uranium factory if you go to a random city, go into buildings, you scroll all the way down, and you have uranium enricher. You have to do the research first. I'm about to get the final research so I can get nukes in a silo. It's 3,000 researchers is a lot. All combined is 7,000. And the top bar shows that you have research nuclear weapon design. A silo is really expensive, $600 million, but nuke is even more expensive. Pretty insane how expensive the nukes are in just general. Yeah, silos, I'm pretty sure the silo takes a lot of time. You could also use the extra research that you have, knowing that you have quantum computing. The most research you could get, pretty much to my knowledge, is if you get the Advanced Research Bureau, economic laws go full high on maximum on research spending, and then getting quantum computing. That'll generate a lot of research, as you can see 23.3 research every couple of days, which is a lot of research. From that should only take like 20 days, or 20 times of that happening, to get to 400 research. And to get to 2,000 research, which is the first two of them, both of them are 2,000 research, be roughly around 100 of them. So 100 times, like, let's just say 3, maybe it's research, you get 20 research every 3 days. That's going to be in around a year. You're going to get already the first, let's see, like the first theoretical nuclear research and uranium enrichment. And then nuclear weapon design. I made a uranium enrichment center instead of Moscow. As you can see, there's a yellow symbol above it. Uranium enricher is really expensive for upkeep. 20 uranium every single 5 days. And it only produces 0.1 enriched uranium. For context, you need about 40 enriched uranium to make one nuke. So that's why I really recommend going for factory output. If you go for factory output, that's going to drastically increase it. Also, if you go mining megastructures, you can get a second uranium enricher, which is really helpful. But both of these things, the silos and the uranium enricher, take a lot of time to build. As you can see, it's been already a couple of months and it's barely even got any progress. It's only halfway done, which is pretty insane, considering other building speeds. The electronics factory would be long done by now. And this hasn't even been halfway there. I made this kind of a protection of Moscow because I was bored. Just a standard circle tanks, winter specialization. So it takes a long time to wait for the silos, but it's definitely worth it. The nukes, I think it scorches the city for 10 years, resets the tier of the city, and also it burns the city. I mean, it destroys the city's population into half of its original. So if it's, say, say it's a city of 2 million people. It's gonna be around 1 million by the time you nuke it. It also kills all the units nearby. And that's why nukes are so OP. Nukes also don't have a counter, so in late game they're pretty much unstoppable. If you get nukes before someone else can, you pretty much have a very good advantage over that person. There's only one downside of the nuke, and that's the fact that it's extreme upkeep, similar to aircraft carriers. It has 4 million upkeep and $1.25 billion and 500 MP, but that's not really going to be a problem in a late game situation. It's mainly the money that's the issue, and the enriched uranium, as those are the most hardest to get out of the requirements. But as you could see, my silo is about to be built, and I'm pretty sure I only need a couple more enriched uranium pieces until I can make that nuke. Yeah, I have 34 enriched uranium. So close to that nuclear bomb at this point, and unleashing just terror on all the cities in Japan. Yeah, we're gonna do a testing subject on Japan. I think I already justified on them. Let me check. Yeah, I did. So this should be pretty easy. Just battle. As you can see, there's this weird symbol above a city when you have a silo. You should use this information wisely. If you think somebody else is making a nuke, you should probably scan places for a silo. And if you're somebody who's trying to build nukes, you should probably make a silo in a very isolated place, which is hard to get to. Maybe you want to make it in the middle of Siberia. But even if you do make a silo in like a major city, don't make it in like your biggest city. And if they have a nuke, they're probably just going to nuke that major city anyways and obliterate it. It's not something you kind of want to happen. So, you just have to just wait for the enriched uranium. Enriched uranium is by far the most annoying substance to get now in the game. And I just hit 40 enriched uranium. Nuke is coming. As you can see in the top bar, it says the Soviet Union has begun construction of a nuclear weapon in St. Petersburg. I'll say that for any type of game, so you should probably use that information wisely. It also says that for maybe you research uranium enrichment, Soviet Union has researched uranium enrichment. Same thing for nuclear weapon design, which are both on a tech tree. However, it doesn't say anything on the top bar for theoretical nuclear research. So that's a bit of a downside to it. Realistically, if I did want to make a new silo in St. Petersburg and it was late game and other people had nukes, they'd probably just nuke St. Petersburg so my silo would go away. Same with my uranium enrichment in Moscow, which would be pretty bad for my nation because my stability would go down a lot. Even with consumer goods, your capital getting nuked is not a good thing to happen. Just in general. So I just have to really wait for this nuke to build. As you can see, it takes a long time to make a nuke. Like it takes several, pretty much, like months in game. I'm gonna get ready to launch the nuke. I think I'm gonna send it towards Tokyo, the biggest city in the world. So right now Japan has 89 million people roughly. Around 90 million, let's just say. And Tokyo I think has like 36 million. Let me just check that. Tokyo is such a big city you could actually click on it without even having to deal with the troops. Yeah, around 36 million people. So it should be around 18 million people. If I nuke it, obviously. So, 3/4 of the way done. So close. I think that Nuke is gonna be the most overpowered unit in the game. Once people start to know how to use it more often. It's already started to happen. I've seen a lot of people already start to nuke people. I went to one server to find the entire server has been destroyed from just nukes. The biggest cities in the world are just gone. They're just half their size or even a quarter. some people launch 2 nukes. I saw one city with even 1 population. It's pretty insane what they do on old servers. My nuke is about to build. I'm gonna declare war on Japan now. Declare war Japan. Oh, I'm out of contact. Japan cancel, doesn't really care. Oh, there it is. Nuke. I'm gonna take a screenshot of it before. Okay. It's showtime. I'm gonna launch the nuke towards Tokyo. Let's hope I don't misclick on in some random part in the middle of the ocean. That would be really annoying, considering how long it takes. It's taken me around 10 years. Oh, there it is. Soviet Union has launched a nuclear missile. I think it goes really high in the sky last time I played. Yeah. Look how high in the sky it goes. And that's not even that far away of a target. If you go across the entire world, it basically takes forever to get there. It's coming over. I don't know what the nuke's gonna do, but I know for a fact that Tokyo is not gonna be good. Oh my god. That's insane. Yokohama's 1.8 million, so Tokyo's 17.8 million people. It's in completely half. There isn't even any infantry in Tokyo. That is insanity. Alright, well that's it. Basically, Rise of the Nations nukes and tutorial on how to make them fast. Around 2030 you can make them. I'll be posting a video on the requirements for nukes in a couple of days.